Oh, well, good. Barry, welcome back. We're at a friend of mine's shop this morning, and I will meet him, I'm sure, Hayden Benzing here. And he's helping me with a Flathead Ford V8 oil pan project that I concocted.
Okay.
From our earlier videos, you know, my favorite 8BA or Series 3 oil pan is this one right here. And what I like about it, it's a factory Ford oil pan that has a windage tray built into it. And it's the only one that I know of. I think it's 5051 or 5152, I can't remember exactly. There's only 2 years, I believe, that Mercury made this pan with the baffle in the bottom. And, you know, I think for most flathead engines, especially stock ones that run at 3,000 RPM at best or 3,500, this is probably not necessary at all. There's just not enough crank speed to make much difference or much horsepower. But I think, you know, as you know, when we dyno test these engines that I've been building with the supercharger on it, we're spinning them, you know, 5,700, 5,800 RPM. And I think that windage tray does matter at that point. How much it matters, I don't know. But I do think it matters. Right. So when I build an 8BA, I always pick this pan because of that windage tray. So right now I'm putting together a Series 2 flathead, a post-war 24 stud 59 AB, and the 8BA oil pan won't fit that block. It's a different design.
That's the deal.
And this is an example of the pan for a 59 AB. Actually, this is similar to 1932 to 1948, 47 oil pan. They have part of the block has the bell housing, part of the bell housing built into it, and then the oil pan bolts to that, and that's where the starter bolts. And you know, this one actually has a removable cover, but the transmission actually bolts right to the oil pan and the block. So none of these ever had a windage tray in them. So I wanted to build a windage tray, and I guess I'd thought about doing it for a long time, but there's a guy in Texas, Dan Soliv, S-O-L-I-V, that built a French flathead a couple of years ago, and he put a pan in a baffle in an earlier oil pan. And that's really where my idea came from, not just me thinking about it, but he actually did it.
Okay.
And he asked him if he had a template, and he said he did, but he also was in the process of moving his shop, and you know, we were never able to connect up and get a template.
Okay.
So anyway, that's kind of the background of, you know, this project that I'm on, and that is to build a baffle, a windage tray for an earlier 59 AB style pan. So Barry, I'm pretty good with cardboard aided design. That's a different kind of CAD design than most people are familiar with, but I'm not a very good electronic CAD programmer. But I can certainly cut up cardboard and tape it together and make templates, and then, you know, either have them scanned or some other way reproduced into, you know, no kidding CAD software. But this was my start. I was trying to, you know, size the baffle and fit it in the pan. And it turns out there's some tricks with this, and I didn't at first even recognize it. But these pans are not straight up and down.
Yeah, there's a contour in there.
Yeah, so the baffle actually has to fit down in this tapered section.
Yeah.
If it was like the Mercury pan, the sides are straight up and down, and that baffle just slides right down in there. You get the width, you know, where it needs to be. It'll slide right down, and you tack weld it in place or weld it in place, and you're done.
Yeah.
But this one's a little more challenging because it's got to be wide enough to do its job, but also has to be able to get down in there. You have to kind of turn it sideways and get it down in there. So I was messing around with this, and then Hayden, who helped me with a couple, and his brother Jake helping me with another project a while back, you know, they said, Steve, this would have been a lot easier if you'd have just done a 3D scan of this part you're trying to make, and then we could have, you wouldn't be guessing on the sixth evolution of this design. We just know what it is, and we could build it for you.
Right.
So I thought of that and said, well, I wonder if we could scan these oil pans in the bottom of the engine and make this baffle more directly than the way I'm trying to do it with cardboard and trial and error with this cardboard.
Steve lent me a pan, so I was able to bring that home, and I got a computer with a 3D scanner, so I could go through, get and scan the pan, get the contours of it, and put all the measurements and sizes in the computer software. That way I could go through it and kind of design a pan, get it to where it would be close and fit well. We make sure it clears everything, the crank, pickup tube, and the oil pump. As well as making sure that it sits low enough to where the oil is not going to be above the pan, and then add some other little baffles in there, little tabs to mount it, and then as well as just making sure it fits right. So what we did on the pan so after scanning the pan, we brought in some of the sides and then kind of trimmed some of the edges in them. And then we decided to do tabs on the sides that'll be bent up and then welded in place of the pan. But it makes it so we can kind of fish the pan or the tray in, and then kind of align it where it needs to sit with the little fixture that Steve had designed up here, which is pretty ingenious. A lot better than what I had planned. And then we'll go through, weld it with the tabs, and then with the little bead rolls in there too, kind of add some rigidity. So you won't get any vibrations, through the tray on there. Yeah, it'd be a little bit easier of a project, like if Steve said, if the pan didn't have these contours in it, if it was like that Mercury pan. But this kind of made it a little bit of a challenging task. But I think we kind of, after a couple renditions of it, a little bit trial and error there too. But a little bit got us, a bit closer and kind of more of a design that's be also repeatable. Now that it's in the computer software and file, it's able, we're able to just cut one out or even multiple out at a time since the file's already been designed. Yeah, once we get the correct prototype done, then we'll save that file and then we can cut, however many out we need on these guys.
We made some changes to clear the oil pump pickup tube, and that turned out to be an interesting story. When Hayden scanned the engine, the pickup tube was on there in the oil pump, and then when I went back and was messing with it more, the bolt on the oil pump, there's enough clearance in the oil pump hold down boss that tube can turn about 1/8 of an inch. And the initial slot we made didn't have 1/8 of an inch of clearance in it. I think we're going to bend it up and put my fixture in, and if it looks like everything lines up, I think we'll just tack it in today.
All right.
And then I'll take it home and give it a try. Dipstick comes down through this hole right here, and so we just slotted it just a little bit so that there'd be a little bit of clearance depending on the pan and the pickup and the dipstick, just to give a little more flexibility.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. All right, we'll go bend these tabs up. I'll try and get them as close as I can to the edge there.
Yeah.
Hey, you never realize, or you might not realize, how many things are going on with an old Ford oil pan.
I know.
So yeah, this pan here, after bending up these tabs, we'll see if I need to rebend the tabs a little bit more, but nope, I think got it first time there. So sit right in. We'll grab our little fixture.
Yep.
Should slide over. And line that up with our bolt holes there in the pan.
I got some 5/16 bolts here. I think we can
just sit it in there. These tabs. Cool.
Yeah. I think it sits pretty nice.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, looks pretty good. Fits pretty nice there.
That fixture sure helps.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just doing this in midair, right?
Yeah. I just stacked some blocks up in there to begin with on the first time around, so I had to kind of get it all balanced correctly in there, make sure it's at the right height, and then go through and weld it. But with that little fixture being in there, it's able to keep my hands free from trying to hold the pan and make sure nothing moves around. So it'll be a little bit easier to weld in place, and especially with the addition of the 2 back tabs in there, we'll get those welded in first.
Once the back and the front are in, then it'll be easy to push those over.
Yeah, get it.
Not move anything.
Get it all done in there. But
Right on.
perfect.
Very cool.
See if that guy fits in there. Oh.
That's rattling a lot. You're gonna need to weld that.
Yeah.
So here's one thing I learned. See how much slop is in there? You can almost, which means it fits, but
You stand to make that hole even bigger?
We could make it a touch bigger too if it needs to be on there.
the other thing is these
Sometimes get bent.
yeah, they're like super flexible. So see, now it fits perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So when you made this slot, this one, did you come 4 inches over for that
Yeah,
edge?
4 inches from the far edge, then to that line there, and then I just did a 1 inch width that way.
Yeah.
You know, I know I had plenty of clearance for it to slot together in there.
Well, I'd say let's tack it in, and
Yeah.
maybe we don't do the sides,
just do those tabs in the
and
front
maybe
ones
even
there.
one up. I
Okay.
mean, just real lightly, because
Yeah.
if we have to take it back out, then it's
Yeah.
easy to get back out. But I think it's going to be fine.
I'll go and get the welder
Sweet.
fired up, and we'll get that. That's it in the back of the pan. That's all fairly centered.
All right, Barry. Well, we accomplished what I had hoped to get done today, and that's to get this latest iteration of this windage tray tacked in. We didn't fully weld it today. I'll take it back to my shop, and we'll put it on the engine that I'm building and make sure everything fits right. And I think it will. I'm optimistic just how some of the changes we made to this version and this fixture we had, I think it's going to fit just fine. So if it does, I'll bring it back and ask Hayden to weld it all the way in for me.
Uh-huh.
And then it'll be on the engine shortly.
Cool.
This engine, I think you know, I'm building for my white Model T race car. And this pan is the next thing that has to be done to get that engine together. And we hope to dyno test it sometime in late April.
Perfect. Awesome.
That'll be fun, right?
Looking forward to that, Steve.
All right.
Good deals.
Thanks.
We'll see
We'll
what
see you
happens.
next time.
Yep.